Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be attempting to make my TBR for the Our Fantasy Bingo Challenge. So this is a year-long reading challenge hosted over on Reddit, the Our Fantasy group. And I have seen people on here make TBRs for years. And I've always been interested. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like, I wish I could do that, but I'd never read enough fantasy. And honestly, I'm not even sure if I do read enough fantasy, but I'm going to attempt it this year. Mainly because I'm so excited about the genre. Like, I'm really enjoying reading fantasy right now. So what better time would there be than right now to like make myself a TBR? But my caveat, as opposed to everybody else that I've watched their wonderful videos, is that I'm going to be doing easy mode or normal mode. I don't know what it's called. I'm not doing hard mode, and I'm not trying to get every prompt. I mean, I'm going to share with you books for every prompt, but my honest goal, honestly, is I want to try and get some bingos out of the board. Like, I don't think I'll be able to read all of these books. That's just a little much, but you never know. And I love creating TBRs. But enough intro. Let's just get into my TBR for Our Fantasy Bingo. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back, all of the things. And so like I said, we are making a TBR, a year-long TBR. Now I did make a 24 books in 2024, so I have that long list, and now I'm gonna have this long list. I think I have yearly challenges covered. A little bit about the challenge. So I will put up the bingo card here, so you can take a look at kind of what it looks like. Now how this is run is there's a few rules, but obviously I feel like you should kind of take it how you want to take it. If you want to officially submit your card, your bingo card, then you do have to follow their rules. And some of their rules are that you can only read from an author once. So you can't have multiple books from the same author on here. So the idea behind this challenge is to diversify your reading, to find some new favorites, to find some new authors and genres and all the things. And so you can only read from an author once. You can only do one reread, I believe. And I think the idea is you don't want to do a ton of like manga or graphic novels. That's not really the intent behind it. The intent is to read more kind of like speculative fiction. So you're talking a lot of fantasy, science fiction, even horror, paranormal type books definitely fall within this challenge. And then on top of that, I think there's what's called hero mode and hard mode. Hero mode being that you review every book you read, which isn't that hard being that I review everything I read on here. But then there's hard mode. There's hard mode, which is basically you take these prompts and there's just an added challenge. And I'll mention a few of the hard modes, but I have no intention of doing that. This again, easy mode. I'm gonna do easy mode just to really keep the heart behind the challenge true to my reading. Enough of that. I think that's all the information I need to give you. I'll link it all down below, obviously, in case you're interested in doing this challenge, which it runs from April 1st to March 31st. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. And I honestly really like that. I think it's fun to kind of have a different time scale or timeline for a challenge. So let's just hop into it. Let's hop into kind of line by line, and I will share with you books that are a potential. Now, obviously, this is a year-long challenge. These probably will change. But let's just start with first in a series. And so this one I feel like is very broad. I could pick a number of books to fill this. So this one I'm keeping a little bit looser, but if I had to pick one, I really do want to read a Mark Lawrence book. I want to try out his writing, and so I want to try The Book That Wouldn't Burn, and this has to do with some sort of like possible time travel potentially, and two kids that are at this library, and honestly I don't really know. And then for the second prompt, it's an alliterative title. It's a hard word to say. So it's basically where there's an alliteration, right? And for this is an example, like for hard mode, you'd have to have at least 3 words that start with the same letter. For easy mode, you have to just have 2. And so I picked this one, which is Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. I'm excited to read this. This is actually part of my reading challenge that I run on Discord. I always link that down below as well. We are buddy reading this over there in like September or sometime in the fall, but it has Sister Scribe. So I only have to get 2 because I'm doing easy mode. So that is nice. And then the next prompt is to read a book set under the surface. And so this could be like under the ground or in the water. And I have this book on my shelf that my sister gave me. And I just love the cover. I think it's beautiful. And it's called Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. I think this sounds great. I mean, it's about mermaids, and I guess our main character is a mermaid who's supposed to collect the souls of those who die at sea and blessing their journeys back home. But then I think she saves like a human boy or something like that. So I don't really know, but I thought it sounded really good and it's on my shelves. And so I'm really trying to read books that are on my shelves for this challenge. And then prompt number 4 is criminal. Read a book in which the main character is a criminal, could be a thief, assassin, things like that. For this one, I am going with the next book in the Throne of Glass series that I am working on. And so I'm on Queen of Shadows, book 4, if you don't count the short stories, book 4 of Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. That's all I have to say about that. I'm excited to get back into the story of Selena. I've been really enjoying it after the last book. And then number 5, the last prompt on that first line is dreams. Read a book in which the character experiences dreams, magical or otherwise. I have 2 choices for this because I'm about to get the Bone season. I'll put that up here. I cannot remember for the life of me what it's about, but it sounded really up my alley and something I would really like, and it involved dreams of some sort. Like she has some sort of dream magic, I think. The other one that I have on my shelves is Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. And this has to do with nightmare magic. And so I think that would count as well. Okay, and then moving to the second line, the first prompt is entitled Animal. Read a book that has an animal in the title. The animal in the title does not have to appear in the story. And so I also have this on my shelf. And so I would love to get started on this series. I don't know what the series is actually called, but it is The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. I think these sound great. I think it is YA. It's a trilogy. I have all of them. Again, thank you to my sister. And the reason I think I would like this book and this whole series is it's kind of historical fantasy, and it feels like it has maybe some kind of found family aspects to it. I'm honestly not sure, but it has wolves in the title, so clearly that counts. And then the next prompt is bards. So read a book in which the primary protagonist is a bard, musician, poet, or storyteller. I could read The River Enchanted that I've seen on a lot of people's lists by Rebecca Ross. So that's an option. The one I thought of, which I'm not sure if this works now, is Robin Hobb series. And so this is book 2 in the Tawny Man series. It's called The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. This is again following the storyline of Fitz. And in the storyline of Fitz, there is a character that has been throughout kind of the stories that is a bard or a storyteller, things like that in the story. So I want to count this, and maybe I just will, because I plan on reading this summer anyway. It's the next one I have in the realm of the Elderling, and I want to read it. Next prompt is prologues and epilogues. So read a book that has either a prologue or an epilogue. Example of hard mode here is it has to have both. The wonderful thing about fantasy is really that there's often prologues and epilogues. Now currently I have this book slotted in. I feel like this is a prompt that I could use a lot of different books if I want to move this book to another space, but we'll see how that goes. So this is The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. I just finished this, so I'm already 1 book into my Our Fantasy Bingo Challenge, so I'm very proud of that. But this is the 3rd book in the David Bad series, and it has an epilogue. I actually didn't even check if it had a prologue since I'm doing easy mode. And then the next prompt is self-published or indie published. So I just don't read indie published books, and I don't even know how to figure out if they're indie published, to be honest. So I should figure that out. But what I do know is I follow a number of people on BookTube that I could probably find a good recommendation for a book in there. But if you have any self-published or indie published books you want to recommend me, please recommend down below, and actually recommend any other books also, because this might be kind of a fluid TBR over the year. And then the last prompt on that second line is romantasy. Read a book that features romance as a main plot. This may be speculative in nature, but does not have to be fantasy, because I'm really interested in the hype. Honestly, I want to know what everybody's talking about with this book, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Cassandra Broadbent. And this involves vampires as well as a tournament of some sort. I think it sounds really good. All right, so moving to the 3rd line of the bingo card, starting with Dark Academia. I could pick up 9th House. I still haven't read this. I really want to. Or I could finish this book. I still haven't finished this book. And I picked up the next one. So this is Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. So this is the 2nd book in the whole trilogy, the Atlas 6 trilogy. And so I do want to read that. But I also want to read Ninth House. Moving on to multi-POV. Read a book that has at least 3 points of view. I'm going with this one, which is my current read. So this is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Fazal. I'm about 100 pages into it. I'm really enjoying it. It has to do with this kind of heist story about this tea house that also is a blood house that serves vampires at night. So it's very interesting so far. So I'm going to count that for multi-POV. There's at least 3 POVs in that. And since I'm doing easy and not hard, which has to do like 5 or something like that, yeah, at least 5 points of view, which sounds a lot harder to me. And then the next is a book published in 2024. And so I wrote down The Familiar. And so this is also by Leigh Bardugo. And it's the latest Leigh Bardugo that's coming out that I actually just ordered. I'm really excited about it. It is kind of historical fantasy. It has to do with like the Spanish Armada and this girl who has a little bit of magic or luck magic that has kind of been roped into society. I'm tentatively using that for the 2024 prompt, but again, that one's a pretty loose one. And then the next prompt is character with a disability. And for easy mode is just read a book in which an important character has a physical or mental disability. So I'm not sure about this one. This could change, but I do know Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing has disability rep, and so I might just go with that. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I mean, I don't know if it's stubbornness, like the hype is, I don't want to fall into the hype, but then I'll probably just read it. And that's a perfect square to read it for. And then the last prompt in that row is published in the 1990s. So read a book that was published in the 90s. I put Parable of the Sower by, what's her name? Octavia? I can't remember the author's name right now, but that was one that I picked that was published in the 90s. I could also go with Wheel of Time. I have Wheel of Time on my shelves. So that could be something I choose. I'm just not sure if I want to hop into that series this year. Okay, so that is row 3. Row 4 is Orcs, Trolls, and Goblins, oh my. And this just says to read a book featuring orcs, trolls, and goblins. Now, I didn't love Legends and Lattes. I just didn't really like it. It was too cozy. And so it's like I could easily like read the second one, but I don't want to. I don't want to read that. And so I put on my list, or at least I was scouring kind of the internet for some ideas on this, because this seemed like a harder one. Even for easy mode, it was harder. Is I found a book called The Goblin Emperor, which actually sounded pretty good. Like it had to do with this goblin main character who was like in this family, and then the rest of his family died off, so he kind of had to take over, and he didn't really want to take over, and he's like half goblin or something like that. I am not sure with the goblin aspect of that, how that'll affect the book, but I feel like there's a number of people that I follow here on BookTube, as well as I think my sister, that kind of liked that book, and so I'm putting it on here. So that is my tentative orc, troll, goblin pick. Next is space opera, which I wasn't quite sure what that meant, so I looked it up. Their prompt actually says, read a sci-fi book that features a large cast of characters and has a focus on social dynamics, which may be political or personal in nature, set primarily in space or on a spacecraft. Already planning on reading this book with my sister. I wanted to try out some Megan O'Keefe, and so we're reading The Blighted Stars. I think this would work just perfect for that, and I have been wanting to try more science fiction this year, so that prompt is perfect for me. And then the next one is Author of Color. And so I put The Blood Trials by, I think it's N.E. Davenport here. I've heard this likened to Red Rising, which I love Red Rising. So I'm curious about that book. So that's my tentative pick. And then the next one is a survival book. And so survival, they say as read a book in which the primary goal of the characters and story focuses on survival. What I'm going to pick for this, I'm pretty sure, is Hunger Games. It's a reread, and so I can have one reread in this whole thing. And on one of the Patreons I've joined, we're doing a bit of a read-along. So Hunger Games is my tentative pick for that square. And then the last prompt on that row is judge a book by its cover. And this is choose because you liked its cover. And so I think, for me, I'm going to wait to see how I feel about what book I want to pick up for that, because I really do feel like that's a mood pick. But I have so many books on my shelves that my sister has given me. Sorry about that. The books are falling down. Like this one I think is just so pretty. And I have no idea what it's about. It's The Darkling by Sunya Mara. I think it's YA, but it's really, it's pretty, but I don't know. So something like this. I feel like I could peruse my shelves and I could find something. And again, that is my goal, is I do want to find books from my shelves. And then the first prompt on the last row is set in a small town. I feel like that's kind of a hard prompt because sometimes you just don't know the size of a town until you're like reading the book, right? So this might be one I fill as we go, but I did hear of a couple options. So the Sword of Keegan, I can't quite remember. I'll put a picture up here. It's kind of a popular fantasy book, or it was a couple years ago, as well as Any Darcy Coates. And so if I come spooky season am really interested in picking up one of her books, she tends to have like haunted house stories. Those definitely fall into speculative fiction. So those two options or more, probably at some point in the year, I feel like I should be able to find a book set in a small town. Next one is 5 short stories. And for another Patreon I'm part of, we are doing a short story buddy read, and it's Blood Child, and I cannot remember the author on that one either. And if that doesn't work, I'm also curious about The River Silver by S.H. Chakraborty, but then I can't have 2 of the same author, so I'll work that out. But I feel like hopefully this one that we're buddy reading will work. The next prompt is Eldritch Creature. Read a book featuring a being that is uncanny, unearthly, or weird. It could be a god or a monster from another place or realm. So the prompt is just kind of crazy, but there is actually a book on my shelves that I feel like follows that based on what I understand about this series. So this is The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. I've heard there's just kind of bizarre creatures. It's a bizarre environment, kind of a little gross, kind of a little strange. And so that's what I was thinking for that prompt. And then the last 2 prompts. Okay. So the second to last prompt is reference materials, which says read a book that features additional materials such as a map, footnotes, glossary, translation guide. There's so many of these in fantasy. So I'm not sure if I really need to pick one. The Tainted Cup, I heard, has all of that reference material. I'm still waiting for a copy from the library to read that book. So that might work, or something else over the course of the year will definitely work for that prompt. And then the final prompt is book club or read along book. Any past or active R fantasy book clubs count as well as R fantasy read-alongs. And so they have this list, which actually, that's one thing if you are interested in joining this challenge, they have lots of recommendation lists and different things on here, but there is actually a list of the book clubs. And since I'm doing easy mode, I can pick from anything in the past. If you are doing hard mode, you have to pick from the current year, basically, and participate, which would be a lot harder because I don't participate in Reddit. I'm never on Reddit. But since I'm doing easy mode, I picked this book, which I was already planning on reading here shortly anyway, and that's Kaikei by Vaishnavi Patel. So this has been popular. It sounds really good. I've wanted to read it for a while, and so this just is perfect time to slot it in since it was a previous read along or something on the Reddit boards. So yes, that's my bingo board as for my plans for the upcoming year. And I'm hopeful for this. I think I'm actually going to make myself a shelf for all of these books so that I can remember that I want to read them for this challenge. But there's enough flexibility in all the prompts that I feel like it's doable. But like I said, I'm approaching this with like, I want to make some bingos. I want to use the easy mode and just see if I enjoy this challenge before I like go all in, if that makes sense. But anyway, let me know down below if you're thinking of participating in this challenge. It's a great one if you want to get more into fantasy, which is kind of where I'm at. And so, yeah, I hope you all are doing well. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to. I will see you in the next video. Okay,